Iris is grieving for her young son Mateo, who died while on a family hiking vacation. She goes to the exact location of his death and, distraught, considers jumping off a cliff. A man enters and introduces himself as Richard. Iris reconsiders after a few minutes of speaking with him. She follows Richard back to their parked vehicles. He assaults her with a stun gadget. Incapable, he ties her wrists and ankles with zip ties before placing her in the back of his automobile. Iris regains consciousness as Richard drives them to an isolated lodge, telling her they will spend all weekend together. She uses her pocket knife to cut the rope around her wrists and strikes Richard, causing him to crash the car. The two fight briefly, but Iris eventually gets out of the car and cuts her ankles free. However, Richard then shows her a syringe and informs her that, unbeknownst to her, he injected her with a paralyzing substance, which will progressively render her powerless over the following 20 minutes. Iris flees into the woods, and Richard follows at a casual pace, knowing that the injection will soon take effect. However, as she gradually loses control of her limbs, she makes it to a river and floats downstream on her back. Iris washes up further down the shore and uses the last of her mobility to drag herself onto solid land. Iris has landed on a secluded property belonging to the old man Bill, who discovers her while mowing his grass. He and Iris are able to converse, with her blinking her eyes, once for yes and twice for no, in response to his questions. Bill takes her into his home and is ready to phone 911 when Richard appears, this time introducing himself as Andrew, and claims to be seeking for his spouse. Bill does not mention Iris, who is lying beneath the couch, since he does not trust Richard. He phones 911, however gets assaulted and murdered by Richard, who then sets fire to the house. Iris has regained motion in her hands, and by pulling on the blind cord, she notifies Richard to her whereabouts. He lifts her out of the house and drives her away in Bill's truck as 911 responders rush to the scene. While driving away from Bill's residence, Richard gets a phone call from his daughter informing him of her good grade. She also mentions that she and her mother will be visiting the cottage that weekend. After transferring the phone to her mother, Richard and his wife quarrel about his family's visit to the cottage. Richard eventually agrees, and she says they'll see him at 10 o'clock, which means Richard won't be able to smash and murder Iris all weekend in the cabin. Richard stops at a gas station to fill, and Iris, who is slowly recovering from her paralysis, tries unsuccessfully to get open the truck's door. Richard drives them back to his wrecked car to get his belongings. While he continues doing this, a police officer arrives and inquires about the situation. Richard claims his wife damaged the car while drinking. The officer is doubtful, and when he attempts to speak with Iris, Richard murders him brutally. Richard brings himself and Iris to a little boat jetty, from which he plans to paddle Iris out to where he can discard her motionless body like he did with his previous victims. Iris asked for a last favor to remove a toy boat from her pocket. When Richard was checking her pocket, Iris manages to steal his knife, stab him in the neck, and hurl him overboard. He tries to get back aboard the vessel, but Iris shoots him with his firearm, penetrating the exterior of the vessel in the process. Despite the sinking of the boat, Iris attempts to get out and swim to the jetty. Richard had hauled himself onto a bank farther down the shore. Iris goes to stand over the dying Richard, thanking him for giving her the strength to keep going in her struggle to leave him. Then she walks away. Thanks for watching. If you like short recaps like this, please don't forget to subscribe or like.